This OTA has a lot of real meat to it. I'm really excited by this stuff. Let's not do any further delays. Let's actually break down the cards, break down this OTA, and talk about the goods and the bads of it. During this OTA, they're taking Sam Wilson down to a 2-2. Now, I'm someone who even said it could go all the way down to a 2-1, but a 2-2 is probably a much more reasonable take. I think Sam Wilson's been one of the best cards in a bit, not just because of how much power it has, but because of the versatility, I think mainly of the abilities of both itself and the shield, as well as the shield always starting on the board. Now, there's going to be no text changes to either Sam or the shield here. They're both going to be interacting the same way as before. The only changes are going to be in the stats of Sam. He already did a lot. Sam Wilson enabling the new card Strange Supreme by allowing the shield to get eaten by Supreme. The ongoing ability being enough typically to throw Miles Morales in a deck that really just has Sam and even Grandmaster as an additional enabler. Miles, I think one of the best 4-drops currently inside of the game, is really spectacular. Multiple hits for ongoing cards, allowing Goliath to be better, as well as Spectrum decks to shine even more so. Second, they even use the word ubiquity for Sam, which I actually had to look up because I'm kind of dumb. That legitimately means something akin to omnipresent, potentially one of the best 2-drops in the game. And they said that they didn't nerf this card because it was enjoyable and it has a lot of synergies. They didn't say they didn't nerf it because people spent money on the card. I can't say one way or another, but Sam Wilson at least getting a nerf makes sense, and I think that this nerf is well warranted, and it does bring the card's total package at least at a bare, just by playing them out, to a 2-3, which is reasonable stats. Previously, once you had Sam on the board, that was a 2-4 in total stats. And then once the shield moves around, you can get that higher and higher. And ramping the card still, I think, is fair. And that makes it closer to something what you can do with Kraven, what you can do with Angela, what you can do with Athena. A lot of other cards that can ramp very heavily. And Sam Wilson can still ramp out. And also, I think that the shield being able to work in so many different styles of decks is probably a fair balancing act in terms of letting this be a very good ramper, but also a utility card and whatever you might need. And I don't think it's going to be the best in slot 2-cost anymore. I don't know what we will have in that slot now, but I do think it's going to be still in a lot of places, but I do think that this change is just going to take it down a little bit. And whether or not that's an immediate noticeable change, I think that this card will still be in a lot of decks, but I'm going to guess as a week or two passes, this card's play rate is going to go down very gradually, but still be a good card. Anyway, I like this change. This is a good change. And I also like this next one that we're going to talk about. Scream is going down from a 2-2 down to a 2-1. Secondary even mentions that Scream has apparently been topping their charts for a while now, putting up large and consistent win rates, and even though it does have a low play rate, still being a very powerful deck. And I think this is incredibly fair. I think the Scream deck has, for a while, been a very powerful set of cards that can pretty much take down a lot of stuff. And Sam Wilson has been a part of those lists as well, and hitting 2 cards inside of potentially what I believe is the best deck at the moment is a notable thing. Even if it's just taking 2 points out of the total power of that deck, I think that is probably going to be mattering, just to allow Scream to get a little bit different diversity here, because let's be honest, no one enjoys having their cards move. There's only 4 slots in every single location, and so every single card that you put down on the board, you want it in that slot, or you want to be able to potentially move from that slot, but you want to do it. You want the control over your cards, and the Scream deck doesn't give you that, so I think this is still fair. I'm gonna be a little bit of a pessimist here, though, on this Scream change. I kind of don't think this is going to be enough. I think that this Scream change is probably going to need to get something else in the future. I don't know what that would look like, what the best change is going to be, but I'm going to guess, and this is kind of as I was talking about before with Sam Wilson as a slow burn, I think as a couple weeks go on, I think the Scream deck is going to come right back. And I think this card's going to go all the way down probably to a 2-0. And I don't know if it's a good thing that this card is probably not going to be hit enough. To be fair, it's probably good from second dinner side because they don't want to make it so anyone feels like they are wasting their resources on having this card and or playing this deck. I do think that screams, I don't want to say frustrating, and I don't even want to say unfun. Maybe unfun is the correct phrasing, but it can be unfun playing this. It was unfun when Clog was one of the best decks in the game. And I don't think Scream really promotes the most fun style of gameplay. I think it's a lot more fun to build up a really big sandcastle than to kick others. They do think that Sam and Scream's win rate are potentially tied together. So this is hopefully going to be a bigger change than I'm thinking, but at the very minimum, Scream deck is going to be still very good, very playable, and I'm excited for it. Not as excited as I am, though, for the Season Pass card getting changed. Phoenix Force, Gilgamesh, and Symbiote Spider-Man are the only Season Pass cards that have needed and required a buff during their own season. Captain Carter now joins those ranks as a 4-3 wasn't cutting it, bringing herself down to a 3-2. She's a difficult card to buff. And this 3-2, I'm actually a little bit more concerned about with. But before I talk about my personal concerns, let's talk about at least the reasoning why. Because, I mean, Captain Carter has been more difficult to work with because of the fact that she requires you to play her differently, that you need her on the front row by turn 4, typically when she can be played. It only gives you a couple of turns to really set up behind her, and there's a big opportunity cost that is a problem with her. So by reducing her cost legitimately down, that also reduces her opportunity cost, giving you an extra turn to play your cards behind her. I don't even know if I like this 3 cost angle. Silver Surfer with Captain Carter I think is going to be a very real style of deck, allowing you to get more buffs when you buff Captain Carter up. So now if you play Captain Carter and then play a Brood behind her, you've won that lane pretty much. I don't know if there's a way you can really get more power down than that, and she is very now similar to Brood in that front, and I don't know what you're gonna be able to do with there. Not even mentioning Moonstone as well as another possibility just for winning a location just with those 2 cards alone. But Second Dinner was kind of saying, you know what, we're willing to accept this as a risk and just say that this is more fun than just giving her another point of power or 2. While they say that they're excited to see how this goes, I'm potentially not. I think that this is potentially one of the most problematic changes of this OTA. While I do think it's entirely warranted, I really don't think that I'm super excited on the 3 cost angle, because I feel like there's a real chance that as a 3 cost, she could just provide you too much utility. A single hit on Silver Surfer, if you play her in the front lane, adds another 4 power to the back lane. If you somehow do Silver Surfer multiple times, you're adding 8 power. Then you add 12 power, 16 power. If you trigger Silver Surfer 4 times, which you can do with Guang, Absorb Man, that's a very easy combination that a lot of decks have done in the past. I'm worried about being 2 or 3, 4 weeks down the line and being like, please, when is this next OTA coming? Because I'm tired of this Silver Surfer meta that we've been in for the last month or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everything's fine. Maybe the card is going to be great. I'd be happy to be wrong, because if I'm wrong here, that means that we have a lot more fun, I think, just in general. Thank God she doesn't work with Sam Wilson. I know Sam Wilson just got nerfed, but could you imagine if as a 3-2 we had a Captain Carter who was then a 3-4 who went to a 3-6 with a Silver Surfer, putting 12 power in the back lane. That's just for a 3 cost. I don't know. The opportunity cost has gone way down. The benefits have gone way up, and I'm concerned what this is going to look like now in the future. This is at least a buff. Captain Carter, I think, has gone from being a very mediocre to just bad card to now being, I think, potentially one of the best 3 drops in the game. Is a little bit concerning, but it could also introduce a diversity into the meta that I'm a little bit interested in, because I feel like the meta has currently been a lot of tech card heaviness. I think that maybe her going down to 3-2 could introduce some more combo style decks into the game, which could mean that people are just going to try to build bigger and bigger sandcastles, which again, I think is more fun. But if people are building more sandcastles, then that means that the sandcastle kickers become better as well. And then does that mean the sandcastle kickers become more prevalent again in the meta? There's no way to know if Captain Carter is going to be a problem. But this is her change, and I think at the very minimum, it was good they did this. A change. This specific change, I don't know if I'm sold on. Unlike some of these upcoming changes and buffs that we have to some cards, we knew that this 5-6 that he previously wasn't enough, and they'd be going to a 5-8 with him. And they say in these notes here that transparently they actually missed with him. They were lower on him. I feel like part of it goes into a conversation, another point they mentioned in their notes here. There's a large disparity between the strength of 5 energy cards versus the 4 and 6 energy cards. Plenty of the 5 energy cards we currently have in the game don't feel like they're worth spending 5 energy on, because cheating stuff out with either Erishim or Psylocke or Luna Snow really becomes necessary, because you need to be able to play a lot of these on turn 4 in order for them to be worth it, which then makes you wonder why they're 5 cost cards if you need to play them sooner than 5 for them to be worth it. Not only is Ultron a card that is your typically card you're going to be playing on turn 5, his stones are your turn 6 plays normally. I don't know if this is going to be enough. His stones typically aren't really worth it. The variance you get with them isn't similar to the variance that you get with a card like Kate Bishop, who her arrows, whatever 2 arrows you get with Kate Bishop, you know that you can get value out of them. Now, if you look at Infinity Ultron here, which again, I know cards are not one and the same. If I am trying to play a Power Stone and a Reality Stone, That's my best case scenario. I've doubled Infinity Ultron's power. Now he's a 16 instead of previously being a 12. And then I throw my Reality Stone down because then I add another drone to another location, which also has 16 power. All of a sudden, I've made it worthwhile. That's spending in total 11 energy, 4 slots on the board to get, if I'm not mistaken, if I've done all my math here correctly, 35 power. And then you're looking at me like, why am I still saying it's a problem here? Well, then you got like some other options here. You have the Space Stone. While it does have more power on its own, the Infinity Space Stone it only moves the lowest power enemy card at its location to location Infinity Ultron. And then you need Infinity Ultron to have even more power, so you have to hope again it has just basically the Power Stone. And again, I don't know if that's worth it. The Mind Stone is good. It just really puts even more pressure on your other stone being better. You go to your Soul Stone, and while this card can put out a lot of power, my issue with the stones here is that they have counter synergy. Because now the Soul Stone wants a bunch of full locations, but you also need to have emptier locations for the Reality Stone and the Time Stone, which means the Soul Stone has to be your final turn play. You have to be spending 3 energy on the final turn of the game for the Soul Stone, really to get the most amount of value with it. Not even mentioning the Time Stone, which wants even more space on the board, especially if you're at the location of the Mind Stone, which puts a card from your hand at there. So that's what all the stones do there, and I know you probably didn't need to hear that, but they are counter synergistic. They don't work together. They each can do little things that are helpful, but they don't really work together. If I want Infinity Ultron to do more, I don't think that the power should have been the first thing that was hit. Either you make these stones better, make it so that if I'm spending 6 energy, and if I get my worst case scenario, then I'm getting more value from that stuff. Or if I'm getting, or you make these other stones, make it so the abilities all work together so that I don't just want and pray for that Infinity Reality Stone and the Infinity Power Stone in order for me to win the game. I do like this OTA in general, and I do think that Infinity Ultron, he appreciates this. I appreciate it. I like it when a card becomes in any way, shape, or form more playable. But I don't think this is going to move the needle enough, and I really think it goes back to the argument that they said. There's a large disparity between the strength of your 5 energy cards and the other cards that you have there. So why would I be playing right now Infinity Ultron versus a Cannonball versus a Gilgamesh? Those cards can give me straight up more value. Those can be better closers. And I can also play something else at the same time as one of those and then not have to worry about an extra turn. The fact that you need to be playing this card on curve is just another ding in a card that I feel like I like and I want to do cool things with. I don't know if this is going to be enough here. With Card Acquisition 2.0 and Snap Packs, as well as the removal of Spotlight Caches and Spotlight Keys appearing in the patch on Tuesday, there's a reason for Second Dinner to buff a few other cards here that should have seen buffs even a while ago. They now can feel like they can buff these cards because people can potentially get access to them because of Snap Packs allowing you to get a greater diversity amount of cards for potentially cheaper prices. And Toxin is our first example of that. Toxin going to a 2/2 is the first of these cards that we're going to be seeing here, and this is a meaningful one. I think Toxin has been in bounce decks for a while, basically ever since he came out, but bounce has fallen further and further out of the picture due to either tech cards or a myriad of reasons. And while Toxin getting this additional buff is nice here, right now we can go to a 2/8, returning 3 other cards there instead of just a 2/7. I think bounce decks are still going to be struggling here in terms of total power, while Toxin is going to give you a little bit more of an edge now. I don't know if it's going to ever be enough to win the entire game, for 1, or for 2, if the other pieces in that archetype are going to be beneficial. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen right now is people trying to do Joaquin, and now Toxin still going to a 2/2. While I do think that's going to be very nice, just in general, Toxin getting this additional buff, I don't know if this is going to be meaningful enough to make this card great, make bounce great. I don't think bounce needs to be great. I do like playing bounce. It's a really fun deck. It hurts my brain playing it. But I think that if anything, we'll probably see a version of move bounce rise up a little bit more so. Other than that, I don't really know what else this change is going to do. Again, I'm always happy to be wrong here, but I don't think a lot is going to be changing at this stage. I've talked about Second Dinner doing a little bit more underpowered as of late, trying to make it so that I feel like a lot more of the newer cards here that they've released feel a little bit more balanced upon entry, and maybe don't make a big splash in the metagame, but also don't make it so everyone feels FOMO for not getting the new card immediately. And I think Penny Parker was one of those options. Penny Parker, upon release, didn't do a whole lot. You didn't have a lot of really big things you were trying to do with her. And I think one of the biggest issues with that was her mech Spider, SP//DR. I guess it's, I think maybe you do some weird name with it. I don't know. Let me know if I'm wrong there. But Spider is getting a point of power here, going from a 3/3 to a 3/4. Nothing else is changing with Penny here. And again, this logic is the same reason as before, whereas card acquisition, this update is occurring. They can make some changes to some older-ish cards in order to let them be a little bit more desirable inside of these snap packs. And I think that's still cool. I think it's interesting and I like that. But again, I don't know if this is going to be enough to meaningfully nudge the needle on this, because I don't think you get a lot of value with Penny anyway. And I don't think the power of the Spider was a problem. To be fair, now, if I'm playing then Penny Parker and then Spider, I'm essentially getting a 7-powered card here in total at the end of it for only 4 energy, because Penny would get that, allow you to get the +1 energy the following turn due to her own ability of that. Whenever this merges, you get +1 energy next turn. In general, yes, I do like this change. I do think that this is good to buff up Penny, give us a little bit more value on some of these cards. It really, by the way, does feel like December 2024. Those cards all have struggled in some way, shape, or form. Luna had to get a buff, Goliath had to go down, Doom 29 had to go up, Spider had to go up, and Doom 29 went down, Spider went up, Bruce went down, or Bruce went up. God, I don't know. None of those cards stayed the same from their initial release stats, but I don't know if this is going to be the greatest thing either, because I don't know what you can really do with this. Even with this extra point of power in the total package, I don't know if it's worth it. I think a much more logical, personally in my opinion, thing to do would probably be to have knocked the cost down to 2 cost. Give you a Hulkbuster at least afterwards. Or even you can make this a 3/5, and I still don't know if it's great. Again, go to those. There was a previous version of Hulkbuster where it was a 3/5, and I don't even know if that would be good, but that would be, I think, potentially more interesting. And then you also do have the fact that you can move that card the following turn, which maybe is the reason why this 3/4 is still okay. But I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Clog with the introduction of Strange Supreme, and I don't know if it's that good. Whenever Clog is good, you really can't do a lot of this style of stuff that Penny would really like for you to do, that Spider wants to do. I do think this is a good change. I don't know if this is going to be a meaningful one, but I do think we might be seeing Spider and Penny Parker as a result, sneaking into a few more decks, potentially just as a way to fill out your curve to set up for Wiccan. And I don't know. In my hopeful future, there's a world where you have a full merge deck and it does insane things. I've tried for that in the past, by the way, and it hasn't worked. But you know what? The Spider buff brings me one step closer to it, so I'll take it, I guess, as a dub. And Spider is not the only 3-cost card going to 4 power. Fastos, however you say. I say Festus, by the way, because it's meant to, all the Eternals are meant to be shortened or versions of like these mythological characters. Athena is Athena. Gilgamesh is Gilgamesh. Festus is, I believe, meant to be a shortened version of Hephaestus, the Greek god. So that's why I say Festus, not Fastos, however you're supposed to say it. Whatever. Sue me. But Fastos is going to a 3/4 from a 3/3, and I feel like this has been warranted pretty much since its introduction. One of the most skippable cards, I think, of the month. Even after Makari got that singular point of power, it was still playable a little bit more so, and I think Festus, whenever I'm playing him, I always feel like he's potentially one of the worst cards in the deck, and I don't know if this is going to change it enough, but it's going to let me feel a little bit more justified. I love playing styles of deck that use Festus, hand buff style, as well as I do think, especially with the Captain Carter change, I think that Festus plus Captain Carter giving you potentially now even more potential 2-cost, discounted 3-cost cards. So a 2-cost Captain Carter might be pretty good. I'm interested to see if this is going to move the needle. Again, I really like this card. I really do enjoy Festus. Do I know if this is going to be enough? Do I think it's going to be enough? I don't know. But I'm happy that they are doing this change anyway. I think he's a really fun card. He's a card that I think promotes a lot of interesting gameplay and requires you to utilize the tools that you have built inside of your deck even more so. And the trade-off of giving your cards the -1 cost or +2 power, I think has been often worth it. And I'm wondering if, as time goes on, as we get potentially, I'm wondering about more skills that are going to be introduced into the game. I'm wondering if that means that Festus can potentially do more and more, as Festus only gives those skills -1 cost, because he can't give them +2 power. As time goes on, I feel like Festus is going to kind of age into his role a little bit more. I think this is probably going to be a good place for him to sit at. He's probably going to have a very specific deck archetype that he's going to fit in specific places, but I don't think he's going to be feeling like the worst card inside of those decks anymore. I really like this change in total, and I think as time goes on, I hope he's going to shine a lot more. I have said that I want Rhino to go to a 2/2 with its current ability for the longest period of time, but I don't have that change over here. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is he's no longer going to be ruining locations. Your days of turning off the location variants, which to be fair, I don't ever believe Second Dinner ever wanted to be a part of their game, especially as more and more cards have entered the sphere that have done this job, Nico and Nocturne, at least just to name a few. I don't believe that Second Dinner really likes Rhino. I think he's always been like the black sheep of Second Dinner's 3-cost cards, even more so than old Crystal. But I think that this change is really exciting, becoming a 3/6 that on reveal, add a rock to your side of this location. Now, this is a really big change. It's nothing akin to what we have had before, but I love the ideas of this. For one, it gives you a large amount of stats at the possible detriment. I'm saying possible for a reason. At the detriment of clogging up that location. I don't think it's a bad thing, because for one, we have plenty of cards that can utilize that. I think Killmonger style of Surfer decks are really going to be fine with that because they can just destroy that rock already. But I also think that, especially as we're talking about, again, I'm going to go back to Captain Carter, who I mentioned earlier, she can put her buff onto Rhino's rock that he makes. And I think that's a really big deal as well. Not to mention Strange Supreme. I thought he's been on a diet of squirrels and raptors. I'm pretty sure he can start eating rocks as well. I've never tried to eat a rock, but I guess that's part of the what if we all started eating rocks. Well, Rhino's here to serve us up that appetizer, that main course, and I'm excited by it. I think this is a very interesting game piece. I also think there's going to be some interesting places for this card inside of a clog style of deck, where you might be wanting to hazmat this card, or you might want to use something akin to a Viper to send it over just as an additional piece of clog, but it fills a role very similarly now to Luna Snow, who Luna Snow is also a 3/6, but adds a rock-esque style card, a 0-power card, to both sides of the location for her. Rhino doing it just for you is a similar detriment. And I think that's something Second Dinner kind of realized, that 6 power I think is just enough power to be like, you know what? I can clog my board, even if it's just for a second, with either a Killmonger, a Viper, or the Ice Cube destroys itself, whatever that might be. Having that clog is okay. And again, it doesn't even have to go there. So if that location is full, if Rhino's the last card there, he's a 3/6 with no downside. And his downside in the end is also really minimal. And I think that's another really big detail to note here. While I do think that this is going to be a big change, and I do think this is going to allow a card that I feel like has been forgotten about for a while, I think it's going to be a way for this card to hopefully come into a lot of new decks, be able to breathe some life into a completely dead piece of Marvel Snap. And not only with this change, Second Dinner specifically says our goal is to roll out reworks to these cards by these cards or these reworks. I'm assuming they mean reworks akin to forgotten cards like Rhino, more frequently than we have in the past. And I think that's what a lot of the community has been asking for. And in my own personal opinion, I want more of this. I'm fine if the new cards that release are mid to just bad, honestly. I'm fine with that as long as they are a new piece, if the OTAs can continue to keep life in the game and let those older pieces, and as well as, again, if the card releases badly, buff it up, as they are doing with Infinity Ultron and Captain Carter here, bringing these cards that are kind of forgotten, kind of dead in the water back. Personally, I'm really stoked about this change. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what other cards they do. I feel like there's a lot of cards who could be using this style of change. Let Namor be a good card. He's personally my favorite character. I think there's so much depth to him, and the fact that he's relegated to just a guy who's now Shang-Chi-able if he stands on his own is really sucky. Orca to a lesser extent, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know any lore about Orca, but like Wolfsbane, give us a buff to rescue. Give us a buff to the rest of the Guardians. Give the Guardians just a rework as well, considering that other than kind of Rocket and maybe Gamora, they're not good. Give us buffs to other cards similar to those. Let these cards be really interesting and still playable later on. I'm excited for this change. I'm excited to see what this means for future updates from Second Dinner. I think overall, this is a very good change, a really nice way to look at updates, really nice way to look at older cards, to say that they don't think that they are doing what they should be doing. They probably haven't done that for a long period of time. And Second Dinner directly saying, we want to fix more of these, to make more of these cards interesting and playable, means a lot. And I'm really excited by that. Bring these older cards, these Series 1, Series 2, Series 3 cards that have been all but forgotten into the limelight. Give us some exciting stuff to do with this. I want to be able to play a really interesting Rhino deck. I'm tired of playing decks that, if I talk about these cards with someone who I don't know about, they're like, sorry, who's Ajax? Did you mean the dish cleaner? And I have to explain to them who Ajax is. And it doesn't work. I know who Rhino is. I remember when I was a kid, I drew Rhino. I actually literally drew a picture of Rhino because I thought he was a cool villain. I'm excited by this. I'm excited by what this means. There's going to be more stuff happening with cards that have been kind of dead in the water for a while. Rhino's a great example of something great and akin to a Tuma. I want to see more of this happen in the future. So 2 thumbs up from me, Second Dinner. Please, more. And besides a small change to Toxie Doxie, the newest card, just to fix a bug that personally annoyed me, where she can hit your skills as well and make them unplayable, that's it. That's all this OTA has, which I don't know is bad, right? This is good. I want to make this very clear. I love every change that we've gotten in this OTA, Captain Carter withstanding. I like changes that they've done here. It makes a lot of cards feel like they're bringing them down in terms of power level and just bringing other cards who have kind of been failing into the limelight in another way. And I'm excited by that. I really am interested in this stuff, and I'm hoping to see some more changes akin to Rhino. Second Dinner, I'll give you this one for free. Uatu, make it a 1 cost 2 power card still, but if you play it to an unrevealed location, okay? Unrevealed location, gets +2 power. I'll give you that one for free, okay? That's a freebie. That's a freebie from me right there. But legitimately, this is a great OTA. This is a lot of really solid stuff, but my problem with this is that this is the last one we get for a month. Now, Second Dinner is going to be out of town the next OTA week, and they're going to be on some sort of company retreat thing. They've done it in the past. There's nothing to be concerned about. The game's going to be fine. They've said as well that if something is atrocious, they will hotfix it if need be. But I think this is probably going to be a safer state to leave the meta in. Again, Captain Carter withstanding. I'm excited by this change. I'm really excited to see what this is going to be doing for Marvel Snap, what the meta is going to be looking like. A couple other notable non-inclusions here. I wouldn't have been surprised if we had seen Morbius go to a 2/2 that gave +1, because I do feel like the Bullseye deck, I think Bullseye's fine, but I do believe a lot of people have taken issue with the Bullseye style of deck. And it's just because I think Bullseye is the feels bad card there, so everyone's like, hit this card because I'm tired of it hitting mine, right? And I get that, but I don't think Bullseye is actually putting out the most power of that deck. I'd argue it's much more akin to Morbius there. And honestly, I kind of expected Frigga to lose point of power here. I think she was already becoming pretty playable when she got her buff to 3/4, and now she's staying at that place, and she's a really good enabler for a lot of different styles of decks. Maybe it's fine. Maybe I'm wrong here, and there's always a great chance that I'm wrong. But in general, I think this OTA is going to be a really great one for them to leave the game on for about a month. I do think, though, that when they come back, I think there's going to be a big old Captain Carter issue to look at, because this is a very synergistic card now. Bringing it down to a 3 cost is going to be potentially an issue. I kind of wish it was like a 2/1, because then, you know, I get Rabona value, but can't really surfer it then. It makes the buffing it a little bit harder, and I feel like that may have been worth it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I hope you enjoy this. I didn't have ability to make these videos before. I didn't have these notes, but Second Dinner has given me access to them, and I'm really excited by this. I'm really stoked to be able to make these styles of videos, be able to give my thoughts, my initial feedback, and just my whole breakdown on everything that this OTA has to offer. Let me know what you think down below. If I should keep making these videos, maybe this is going to do horribly. Maybe this is the only one I'm ever going to do of the OTA style videos, but I'm hoping it's going to do well. I'm excited for this OTA, excited for these changes, and we will have to see how this goes as time goes on. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one, and peace out.